A tense reunion and unseen confrontations. Steve Sr. made his comeback during Episode 7's group dinner in Nashville to celebrate son Jesse McBee's birthday, along with his other three boys, Stephen McBee Jr., Cole McBee, and Braden McBee. They were also joined by some friends, including Stephen Sr.'s ex, Galinas, who sat right next to him at the steakhouse. His and Galinas' first face-off of the season was surprisingly cordial, as she asked what Stephen Sr. had been up to during his absence amid a then-ongoing investigation. He shared that he'd been trying to wrap up some projects in Nashville so that he could return to the Galinas, Missouri farm and be a burr under everybody's saddle again every day. That's when Stephen Sr.'s phone started blowing up with the sounds of new message notifications, prompting him to excuse himself to the restroom. Behind the closed door, he had a heated conversation with his new girlfriend, Masha, and a hot mic picked up the audio. "What are you doing? I'm in the middle of dinner with 15 people, Stephen Sr. exclaimed. You talk about no pressure. This is the most pressure I've ever seen. After demanding that Masha respect his time with his sons, who he hadn't seen for months, he concluded the unseen call by shouting, "Do not come down here. I will see you in a few days. I don't have time for this." Masha confronts Stephen McBee Sr. in Nashville. Despite Steve Sr.'s demand, Masha did travel to Nashville, however, as Stephen Jr. found out on Instagram the next morning. Shortly afterward, the McBee brothers discovered that someone had smashed out windows in both Stephen Sr. and Stephen Jr.'s trucks, which were parked on the street outside the house where they were spending the weekend. The latter alleged that Masha was probably responsible for causing the damage. Masha showed up unannounced to the house, explaining to the brothers that she was just dropping off some bags, before going upstairs to confront Stephen Sr. once again. Their blow-up occurred off-camera, but Mix captured what was said between the two. "You flew down here? That's crazy," Stephen Sr. vented, to which Masha replied, "Why are you lying to me? I know she's staying here." Seeming to confirm that his girlfriend was referring to her former friend and his ex, Galina, he fired back, "She came for a meeting, for goodness sake." Calling the situation absolutely crazy, Stephen Sr. further insisted, "She's not staying here." Afterward, Masha descended the stairs, pausing long enough to turn around and make a dismissive gesture in his direction. She then said goodbye to the brothers and departed. The McBee Dynasty cast reacts to Stephen McBee Sr.'s return. Earlier in the episode, several cast members shared their honest thoughts on Stephen Sr.'s comeback. "Even though my dad's not perfect, I love my dad, and I love being around him," Stephen Jr. told a producer, joking that he conveniently forgot to tell everyone back in Gallatin that he would be in Nashville with them. Jesse, for his part, added, "Seeing my dad for the first time is obviously amazing. I miss him and I miss hanging out with him." Even Galina had only positive things to say about their reunion. "It's really good to see Steve. It's been a while, and it feels extremely good just to be joking, laughing," the McBee Farm and Cattle Co. CFO admitted in a confessional. "I am moving on. My goal for the day is celebrating Jesse and not for anything to upset the day." As for the fact Masha was starting to freak out, as a producer put it, during their dinner, Galina responded, "I love it." Back in Gallatin, Stephen Sr.'s ex-wife Christy McBee, on the other hand, was less than thrilled to find out that her 4 sons were spending the weekend in Nashville with him. "I get so worried when they're around their dad because it's never for the boys," she explained to her son's Uncle Jimmy's wife, Darla, during Casey Adkisson's baby shower. "It's about him and what makes him look cool. And I feel like he doesn't want them to have a solid relationship because he wants to be able to have them go party with him." Calling her ex a hypocrite, Christy added, "I just want more for the boys, and I want more for their families." The low hum of conversation and the clatter of silverware filled the dimly lit Nashville steakhouse. For Stephen McBee Sr., this dinner wasn't just a reunion. It was a homecoming of sorts, a fragile attempt to mend fences and reclaim his place at the head of the table. He sat between his son, Braden, and his ex, Galina, a configuration that felt both natural and impossibly tense. The other three sons, Stephen Jr., Cole, and Jesse, the birthday boy, were scattered around the large table, their faces a mixture of relief and cautious optimism. "So what have you been up to, Steve?" Galina asked, her voice surprisingly soft, a stark contrast to the boardroom authority she usually commanded. Stephen Sr. leaned back, a faint smile on his lips. "Just trying to wrap up a few things here in Nashville. The plan is to get back to the farm soon, be a burr under everybody's saddle again every day." The comment drew a chuckle from his sons, a sound he hadn't heard directed at him in a while. For a moment, the distance between them evaporated, replaced by the familiar ease of a family gathering. But the illusion was shattered a moment later. The low, insistent buzz of his phone began vibrating against the polished wood of the table. Stephen Sr. glanced at the screen, a muscle in his jaw twitching. It was Masha. He tapped the phone to silent, but the notifications kept coming, a relentless digital assault on the fragile peace he had worked so hard to establish. With a muttered apology, he pushed his chair back and headed toward the restroom, a tight knot forming in his stomach. Inside the small, sterile room, he hit the call button with an angry jab of his thumb. A hot mic, forgotten in the bustle of the dinner, captured his rising fury. "What are you doing?" "I'm in the middle of dinner with 15 people, he hissed into the phone, his voice a low growl. "You talk about no pressure. This is the most pressure I've ever seen." His new life, the one he had tried to build away from the farm and his family, was colliding with the old, and the crash was deafening. He had left to escape the scrutiny and the drama, and here he was, trapped in a different kind of public spectacle. "Respect my time with my sons," he demanded, the words punctuated by the weight of months of separation. "I haven't seen them in ages. Do not come down here. I will see you in a few days. I don't have time for this." He slammed the phone shut, the sound echoing in the small room. He took a deep breath, composed himself, and returned to the table, forcing a smile that felt foreign and brittle on his face. The next morning, the Nashville sunshine was bright and cheerful, a stark contrast to the mood in the house the McBee brothers were sharing. Stephen Jr. was scrolling through Instagram, a cup of coffee in his hand, when he froze. "Guys," he said, his voice a low whisper, "Masha is here. She's in Nashville." The brothers gathered around him, their faces a mix of disbelief and annoyance. The celebratory weekend had just taken a sharp, unwelcome turn. A short while later, the casual atmosphere was shattered by a more jarring discovery. Two of the brothers' trucks, parked on the street outside, had their windows smashed. The glass glittered on the pavement like 1,000 tiny diamonds, a malevolent ornament in the morning light. "It has to be her," Stephen Jr. said, his voice laced with venom. The possibility hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. Just as they were trying to process the chaos, a car pulled up. It was Masha. She walked up the front steps, an expression of wounded determination on her face. She held a couple of small bags. "I'm just dropping these off," she said to the stunned brothers, her voice clipped and cold. She walked past them, up the stairs, and disappeared into Stephen Sr.'s room. Another unseen confrontation, but this time, the hot mic was ready. "You flew down here. That's crazy." Stephen Sr.'s voice boomed, full of shock and fury. "Why are you lying to me? I know she's staying here." Masha's voice was high with accusation and hurt. He knew she was talking about Galina. "She came for a meeting, for goodness sake, she's not staying here." The words were a mix of anger and exasperation. This was his life now, an endless cycle of suspicion and defense. He wanted nothing more than to be a father again, to be the patriarch he had once been, but his two worlds kept colliding with the force of a train wreck. "This is absolutely crazy," he insisted, though he knew even as he said it that his life was anything but sane. The door opened, and Masha descended the stairs, her face a mask of silent rage. She paused on the landing, turned back toward the closed door, and made a dismissive gesture. With a final cold goodbye to the brothers, she was gone. Back in Gallatin, Missouri, at a cheerful baby shower for Casey Adkison, Stephen Sr.'s ex-wife, Christy McBee, was trying her best to put a positive face on the day. But the news that her 4 sons were spending the weekend with their father in Nashville weighed heavily on her. As she confided in her friend, Darla, her worries spilled out. "I get so worried when they're around their dad because it's never for the boys," she explained, her voice tight with concern. "It's about him and what makes him look cool. And I feel like he doesn't want them to have a solid relationship because he wants to be able to have them go party with him." She saw her ex-husband's return not as a reunion, but as a performance. "He's a hypocrite," she added, the word holding a lifetime of resentment. "I just want more for the boys, and I want more for their families."